Let me just move straight to Ajahn Chulacheeb. If you look at Thailand and you think, okay, who would be an expert on at universities on China, who would know China, its social fabric, its history, speak the language, and so on. Ajahn Chulacheeb would be the top of the list. So he has a bit of a sore throat today, so I don't know how long. As long as you can speak, Ajahn, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased and very honored to participate in this public forum. I would like to apologize for my sexy voice because I lost it last week. In fact, it was stolen by the microphone at Thammasat Unversity campus. At 9 o'clock a week, last week, I gave a lecture on Thai foreign policy at 9 o'clock. Good voice, probably sexy one, but then by 12 o'clock, after 3 hours, my voice disappeared. So something wrong with the microphone. Some people say that it may be the Russians doing, but I doubt whether Russia is that interested in my lectures on Thai foreign policies. Anything bad, always go to Russia, which I think is unfair for the Russians anyhow. Anyway, coming to today's public forum, I had a fear, when I saw the list of the panelists, and I was put on the third of the list behind Kavi. Everybody knows that when we speak, everybody listens, and there's nothing left for others to speak. But it is not only a single fear. After listening to him, so I have double fear with his experience with Kavi's analysis. Is there anything else for me to talk to you? Anyway, the show must go on. Therefore, I would like to make 3 points. One comment about the theme of today's public forum, and then 2 observations about the acronym we have, which look more like structures. I call this strategic structures or strategic architecture. So my 3 points, first one will be the comment on the China's way by comparing with the ASEAN way. There are similarities, differences. My second point will be looking at these acronyms. At first, I thought I know BRI, AIIB, NDB, SCS, LMC, and I thought the ETC was a new one. I haven't heard before. I thought it may be European Transcontinental Cooperation or something. Only I heard this morning by Ajahn A that it is etc. etc. But anyway, that helped me a bit. My second point, we'll be looking at all these acronyms. Looking at these structures, is this Chinese strategic structures? Some of you have already mentioned. And my third point will be on the implications of the rise of China with the initiative of Xi Jinping on various strategic architecture and how it have an impact on international system, especially on the world order. Let me first comment the theme. When you hear the word China's way, and when you look at this acronym, it reminds me of the ASEAN way. And when we look at the ASEAN way, everybody knows that we talk about ideas, about norms, about principles of interactions among ASEAN members. For example, consultation for consensus, non-interference in domestic affairs, informality, inclusiveness, non-use of force, peaceful settlement of dispute. These are norms, these are ideas, these are principles of dealing with each other among ASEAN. But when you look at the China's way, these are not ideas. When you look at BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, or AIIB, One Belt, One Road, or OBOR. I hope they stop changing the name now, so else I get confused. It looks more like a transportation connectivity platform or structures. AIIB, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. This is a financial structures, financial architectures. NDB, the BRIC NDB, New Development Bank, the LMC, Lan Chang Mekong Corporation, SCS, at first I thought in Shanghai Cooperation System, but it turned out that it is a South China Sea issues. And then the LMC, Lan Chang Mekong Corporation. All these are not ideas. They are not the norm, but they are in fact concrete structure that China set. So I don't think this is the China's way. It is the China's architecture, the China building block for something. What is that something? I think if you want to find out, you have to go and to read not only volume 1 of the governance of Xi Jinping, which has been a few years ago. Now volume 2 already is coming out. In order to understand why, I know this come during Xi Jinping period, only in the past 5 years, all this initiative, all this structure has been put forward. In another word, this is a Chinese strategic architecture that we are talking about. That's my first point. Let's come to the second point, my observation about these structures or strategic architecture. It's all come up in the past 5 years when China was under Xi Jinping, and it's all related to 中国梦就是红楼梦不是红楼梦啊红楼梦 is the red dragon China Xi Jinping is the red dragon. He is red because he's from revolutionary families and he is the dragon of China. So 中国梦就是红楼梦 What does that mean? You remember when he was appointed the party secretaries in November of 2012. 2 weeks later, he went to visit a museum, like look at the exhibition, and he gave a speech. And in that speech, he first thought about this woman. And he explained it to rejuvenate the Chinese nation. And after that, all the others came out. All the building blocks came up. A year later on, in 2013, he went to Kazakhstan and start talking about AIIB, the Silk Road economic belt linking China to the West, to Central Asia, and then to Europe later on. And later that year, 2013, he went to Jakarta and gave a talk at the parliament talking about the ILU, the Silk Road, the maritime Silk Road of the 21st century. In the meantime, he also mentioned another key concept, community of common and shared destiny. And that is also important. It looks like that is the goal that he would like the world to be, to appear to be that way. So 中国梦, or the China's theme, is related to all these structures. And 中国梦, to rejuvenate China, he has the goal. The goal is double 100. 2021, 100 years anniversary of the founding of the Chinese Communist Party. And the second goal is 2049, 100-year anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. Among these two goals, you learn more about these two goals when you read those 66 pages of Xi Jinping, 3.5 hours. And when you're interested, you can read it in here. I read it because I have to give another talk on Monday about similar topics. What Tim has already summarized what is in this. And I think you should read this. Not only this one, but many of Xi Jinping's speech also give us the clue of his strategic architecture that we are talking about. So the two goal period, 2021 and 2049. These are the goal that China is expecting. In his latest speech at the Party Congress, the Chiuta, the 19th Party Congress, he gave more some more detail about what he expects China will be in the next 30 years. He divided into two periods, from 2020 to 2035. The first 15 years, China will achieve a Xiaokang, a moderately prosperous country. And then the second period from 2036 to 2050, China will become a strong, civilized, harmonious country, fully developed. So China has a grand strategy, not only for herself, but also the grand strategy of the new world order. Let me go to my third point. Hopefully my point is still with me. I have both the Thai herbal medicines and also the Western medicines with me in case I need it. I'm well prepared. My third point is about the implication of this security architecture initiated by Xi Jinping in the past 5 years, and I'm sure that there will be more to come in the future. Especially, you have to be watchful for this 19 People Congress, which is coming up next month in March. It's easy to predict who will be the vice president of China. You know that the president will be Xi Jinping. It's easier to predict who will be the vice prime minister. But what are the game plan? What are the policy? Definitely it will follow the 66 pages, 3.5 hour scheme that Xi Jinping has mentioned. But what are the details? What are the priorities? What are the things? I think we will be looking at that later on. But what I want to say is that the strategic architecture that Xi Jinping has been building up in the past 5 years, are they competing or complementing the existing international system or world order initiated by the West and the United States since the Second World War? Since the end of the Second World War, the victorious Western country set up a new system, a new world system, a new world order. What do we mean by new world order after the post-World War? I would say that world order is the arrangement of relationships among state actors so as to bring about peaceful relationship, peaceful coexistence, and economic prosperities among the members. For the world order to be sustainable, they need two things. First, world order need to have norms, agree norms, and then they need to have functional mechanism. Norms are principles, ideas, rules, regulations agreed upon by the member states. Mechanism are institutions or meetings, organizations to monitor that all members agree, commit, comply to the norms. The world order after the Second World War has two important aspects. One is the world political orders. The other one is world economic order. And these two are set up by the West and the Western allies after the Second World War. For the world political orders, the norm is peaceful settlement of conflict, And you can see that written in Article 1 in the United Nations Charters. And power who will look after this is the United Nations Security Council with 5 countries. And the mechanism was the UN. For the economic world orders, you have 2 sub-dimensions, the trade dimension as well as the financial or monetary dimension. Trade and monetary are linked to each other. If you have a good, stable money, then trade will expand. So for the trade economic world order, the Second World War, the norm was free trade. At first, in Havana, they want to set up ITO with both the norms and also the mechanism, but they disagree on the mechanism. So ITO, International Trade Organization, was thrown out. They keep only half of it, and they call it GATT, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. Later on, by 1995, they think that it is important to have a mechanism, so World Trade Organization was set up. China joined later on. For the monetaries, exchange rate stability is very important through the gold standard system. So those with mechanism IMF and World Bank, ADB and other regional banks. So those were the existing world order that has been with us for more than 70 years. And many states benefit from it. Many small states, big states, but they do not benefit equally. China also benefit, and China also realized that China did not benefit equally. And that's why I think China would like to change, if China has the capability. But from 1990 onward, China must strengthen themselves. In the past 3 decades, I think China realized that China has been successful in their economic development, which benefit from this world orders. But China was also quite unhappy with several aspects of this world order. In the past 10 years, more than 10 years, when I have visitors from Chinese scholars, from SIGAR or from others, they always told me why Thailand and ASEAN still continue with this Cold War mentality, with the alliance system with the United States. Can we set up a new? They always criticize about that. At the same time, they also criticize about the economic structures, and that's why you see that when China has been successful economically through this modernization reforms unleashed by Deng Xiaoping from 1979 onward. I think for 30 years, China has been very successful. China has been able to become the second largest economy in just 1 generation. China became the largest exporting country, surpassing Germany. Not to mention many of these accomplishments. China became, I think China is quite confident. China was able to weather through many crises. For example, the Asian financial crisis of 1997, then the subprime crisis of the United States. Later on, the public debt crisis of Europe. China was able to weather through this. And at the same time, China witnessed the economic weakness and the economic decline of the West with the United States, with Europe as well. Consequently, I think China came to realization that opportunity has arisen for China to take a stage, to play. Other people has been criticizing China for not performing according to responsibility. In fact, there are 2 factors, the external factors and the internal factors. The external factor is that you saw the power shift in the 21st centuries. The power shift has two aspects. The first one is, I call the transitions of power. Power was no longer focused or concentrated in the Western United States or Europe, but it transitioned into Asia. And many people has been talking about the Asian centuries. But in fact, let me recall, 100 years ago in the year 1905, in the year 1905, John Hay, the Secretary of the State of the United States, in 1905, he said, let me quote, Mediterranean was the ocean of the past. Atlantic is the ocean of the present, and the present means 1905. And Pacific will be the oceans of the futures. When you look at the Pacific nowadays, the three largest economies are in the Pacific. United States, especially the West Coast, China, and then Japan. And in the near future, maybe the Indo-Pacific will be the new stage of wealth and powers. So that is the transitions of power. The other one is diffusions of power. Power is no longer concentrated in the state, but in fact it filtered through into not state actors anymore, but also to non-state actors that we have to pay attention to. So the transitions of power and the diffusions of power are the key element in the external strategic environment of the world of the 21st centuries. Internally, China also sees that their economic development has been successful, and they were different from what the Western has been proselytized. For the West, economic success comes from market capitalism, comes from liberal democracies, and the priority of political right over other right, human right. But for China, China has proved in the past 30 years that success of economic growth can come from state capitalism, as has already mentioned. I fully agree with him on that. Moreover, liberal democracy is not the prerequisite for the success. In fact, China showed that democratic centralism can also bring about the economic growth, the eradication of certain poverties, and moreover, China also showed that the priority of economic right is important than the political right. So in other words, we are facing the phenomena in which two models are competing with each other. The Western model of economic growth and the Chinese models. I don't think that China want to export it models, but I think China want to demonstrate that there are the alternative, and China want to show the alternative of there is not supposed to be a linear progression to economic growth. There are in fact many other ways, and China is other way. Thailand has to find their own way. Thailand cannot follow the Chinese way anyhow. Therefore, to conclude my remark, in other words, we are seeing two competing economic models as well as two competing world orders. The Western US-centric world order and China-centric world orders. With BRICS, which is the, I would say that BRICS represent the political aspect. You know, in the world political order set up by the West, you have the Perm 5. Is China presenting the BRICS as the new 5 countries representing various aspects of the world? That is something to keep pondering. Economically, we discussed already about the the AIIB, the NDB, which at the same time complement as well as compete. In other words, China is showing that there is an alternative. It's up to you to choose. You can have both, or you can watch and choose one or the other. In other words, China is presenting an alternative to the world, whether which one you prefer. In terms of the socio-cultural dimensions of the world order, China has set up the Confucius Institute, Confucius. The Confucius institutions and also the Chinese Cultural Center has been established all over the world. So with this in mind, are these two competing world orders? They are cooperating at the same time as well. So in fact, what we are seeing is that these two models are working with each other like yin yang. And what is the result? There are two results. One is the Marxist result. Thesis versus antithesis, it becomes a synthesis. They may transform into one. Or the yin yang will keep on going forever. And I think I am more likely to feel that the yin yang will keep on going forever, but at the same time transform the yin and the yang. Because they learn from each other. They are not stupid. They know the weakness of each side. So they are improving each other. So we will see the yin yang competing, complementing, transforming each other for several decades from now. In that case, what can small state like Thailand or ASEAN will do in this never-ending competitions between the two models? I would like to say that China respects three types of powers. The first type of power that China respects is military powers, force. The second one is economic powers, wealth. I think Jim discussed very well at the very beginning. But the third type that China also respects, the third power is intellectual power or wisdom. Small states like Thailand and ASEAN cannot match the Chinese military power. We cannot match the Chinese wealth or economic power. The only thing left is that the intellect powers, the wisdom. In the past 50 years, ASEAN has wisdom. But in the past, we depend upon people, individual persons like Lee Kuan Yew, Prince Wan Vaitiyakon of Thailand, Thanat Korman. We may not be that lucky because things did not go slow at that time for us to accumulate the knowledge. Now we are in a high speed digitalization. Therefore, knowledge, wisdom is very important to deal, to manage with China and the United States. And I hope that we will come here again to exchange our idea so that we can accumulate and crystallize the wisdom so that we are able to manage this yin-yang relationship between China, United States, between West and Asia for the benefit of all mankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajarn. That was to my students. This would be called the tour de force. It was comprehensive, authoritative, and you covered everything. And we have this on YouTube, so we'll make sure to share it subsequently. Many issues here. I think that this is not just acronyms, and I'm responsible for naming the acronyms. So I just wanted to have a provocative, interesting, stimulating caption title. So at BRI, AIIB, and so on and so on. And the ETC is the others, such as the SCO that you mentioned, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or even that you really haven't mentioned, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, and so on, and the others. Look, Ajahn, you have many points. I want to make sure I tease out a couple of points for the students here. And it's like we're in your classroom when you were talking. So power transition, Mediterranean, Atlantic, Pacific, not a new phenomenon. It's been around before. And there's a distinction with the transition and the diffusion. So diffusion is the power away from central authority, state to non-state, but also beyond non-state, even individuals. And then this state-led capitalism as a model, as opposed to market-based capitalism. Democratic centralism as opposed to liberal democracy. These are phenomenal. I mean, the trends that we're seeing. I would say, Ajahn, that when you talk about Western model, we have members of the diplomatic corps, ambassadors, diplomats from the European Union, from Scandinavia. They might beg to differ a little bit. You might be talking about Anglo-American, perhaps. Look, I want to move straight to Dr. Tang and Jan Chulacheeb. The point about wisdom is really well noted, as opposed to military and economic. Dr. Tang, please, in the next 20 minutes. First, I want to tell the audience, I could not convene this public forum without a Chinese scholar, right? You talk about the China forum, with all the other experts we have in Thailand, but we have to have a Chinese. So I desperately, send word around, ask around. The Chinese embassy has been very kind, very accommodating, receptive, responsive. So I want to thank the Chinese embassy. I had in mind someone, a senior diplomat there, but not available. But the Chinese embassy said, look, we can get you someone from China. And I jumped, sure, please, do. So Dr. Tang Qifang comes from China Institute of International Studies, CIIS, which is a think tank of the Chinese Foreign Ministry. She has spoken at our forums and events before, so it's good to have you back, Dr. Tang. So please, your reactions to what you've heard, especially to this, is this a grand strategy, strategic architecture, BRI? And tell us, by the way, I go to China and they call it BRI. They don't call it OBOR. So I've not used OBOR now. Is it BRI or OBOR? Belt Road Initiative or One Belt One Road? Tell us, just for certainty, just once and for all. And then all the rest, is this a strategic architecture, grand strategy, and where is it heading?
As the last speaker, firstly, I would like to thank Dr. Thitinan and Thailand AIIB for inviting me to this very important public forum. But I have another word to all of you. Okay, all of you. And that means that Happy Chinese New Year, because that for the lunar year, today is January the 8th. It's still the New Year to celebrate the New Year. So Happy New Year to everyone and good luck for all of you. Okay, because I was very, very honored to be here and to hear such insightful points from Jim, from Kavi, from the Dr. Chulacheeb, and yes, as a Chinese, that I have to go. I have to come. I must come, because that we have very long. We have 1 week holiday to celebrate our New Year. So it's very difficult for me to get my visa to everything, because every governmental institution is closed. And time is very limited. So I have to also thank our colleagues from our embassy here and to help me to get the visa to be here. I arrived in Bangkok early this morning, 1 o'clock. So I'm very glad to see all of you. Yes, I'm really, at the first I get the invitation from Dr. Thitinan. I saw the title, China's Ways. Yes, I like this title very much. Yes, ways waste is a very important word. So that I also at the first glance I see the ETC here, but I'm not. I'm impressed because you know ETC is also a way, right? On the highway, right? You drive cars, ETC for everyone. You have to pass it. It's also a way, and so Chinese ways. Yes, we have so many Chinese ways here, and yes, they are part of them. All of them made up. Yes, as everyone mentioned, it's like a strategic architecture. But as the inside in China, I'm not sure whether it's a so strategic present. I'm not sure in the future what it will become. But presently, I'm not very sure whether there is a very clear strategy and behind these architectures. But what I'm sure is that they are ways. All of them are ways, a very, very practical ways made initiated by China. But the ways should be worked not only by China but by all of the partner countries. I think when we talk about ways and to make a way into a real way, it's not by talking but by walking and not walking on the foot from our feet, but walking by all of the partners to make plans, projects, programs, working together by all of the workforce. So here that yes, it's a pity that in fact if I can speak in Chinese, maybe I can express myself better because I have so many words in Chinese, Chinese character. But it's yes, it's but I need to I hope that I in the future my English is better to express myself, and all of you, all friends, that you can learn more Chinese characters that to help our communication in the future more smoothly. Yes, I think that's another direction in the future. Okay, yes, as Dr. Thitinan and Assoc, what is BRI or what is the first term we use to mention 一带一路, One Belt One Road, and you make it initiated as over. But I think I can tell you very not officially because I'm not I'm not official, but I cannot tell you very officially. But as a scholar, in China I can tell you that now in China we use BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, and over is we do not use that officially in Chinese media, so we use BRI. So Dr. Chulacheeb, do not be confused. No more new terms to express One Belt One Road. Only BRI in the future. You will not get confused. And I think that now, yes, we have so many ways. No matter in the future, whether it can become a very strategic architecture, we are not sure because China is still 摸着石头过河, and to cross the river and touching stones. China is still doing this. That no one knows what the future will be like, and including China. China is trying its best to do the practical, to make practice and practical initiatives to help things happen and to help the good things happen, not only to China but to all of neighbors and the partner countries and the partner communities. And I think as all of the three speakers mentioned that all of these ways, they have their very specific initiatives, their functions. You can see that, and they have proved themselves that to some extent they are functional and they are helpful. And here I would like to give you a case study, and as everyone, we have mentioned the LMC, Lancang Mekong River Corporation, not initiative, now it's a framework. And the LMC happened only since 3 years ago, you know, and we held the first conference for the foreign ministries in by the end of the 2015, just less than 3 years. But now you know that just last month in January, and the second summit, the second summit of LMC held in China, not in China, in Cambodia, and it get a very fast progress. And it's a pity that, in fact, I have a PPT here, and you see that because I like stories, and here I make a story for LMC, means that the past and the future of LMC, and it has a very romantic title in Chinese, LMC 的前世今生. And I'm not sure whether you can understand that. I think the story of LMC is like a very, just like a tree. Here, like this is a tree. Just in the past less than 3 years, LMC grows very fast from a seed to a very beautiful young tree here. And so, what makes LMC grow so fast? I think there are several reasons. First reason is that it is based on the real common interest. What do I mean by real common interest? Because yes, we know that there are so many mechanisms in the basin of Lancang Mekong River, so many. In the past 3 decades or 4 decades, so many. But LMC is the youngest one among these mechanisms, but it grows very fast. Why? I mean that all of the 6 member countries are all the countries in the basin. No outsiders, all of them insiders, because they can find their common interest that have been affected by the river. They are very practical common interest, like agricultural, like the water resources, directly connected to the river. So I think that's the real common interest. And the second reason is why it grows so fast. It has a very functional system of practice. Because before this mechanism was founded, there is the early harvest program of LMC. That means there are 40, as far as I'm concerned, there are at least 45 projects even decided even before this mechanism was set up officially. And these projects they are smaller, they are more flexible, and they directly benefit the people who live along the river, and benefit the communities, the communities that's by the river, and all of them, of course, that these 45 projects benefit all of the 6 countries, not only one country or not only 2 countries, but all of the six countries. So I think that's why, because it is very practical, or even you can see it's very pragmatic of this mechanism. Here I would like to share my my understanding with Mr. Kavi that yes, you mentioned that the bulldozer, the bulldozer, this word that so that's very important to understand the Chinese.
Yes.
It's mentioned by our Foreign Minister, Mr. Wang Yi. In Chinese, LMC 不做清谈馆，要做推土机。Here I do not use the words as bulldozer. Here I think bulldozer is not a good word, it's very initial in English. Here I use the soil shifter. Soil shifter. Yes. Yeah. The soil shifter other than talk shop. So we can not only talk about things, and we must to do things. I think that now what China, not only China, but all of the developing partners or the even developed partners should do. Yes. So yes, that's my understanding of LMC. Yes, because our time is really very, very limited, and here, and I really have a very, very long future of MLC to share with all of you. But the future is very long, but presently our time is very, very short. So here, and I have, yes, you see, like here, I have the future because I love story, and I think the future of MSC, in my view, that is like this tree, and if with based on the programs, these very functional programs, based on the growing architecture, the growing connectivity, and in the future, I think it will become a very tall and very big tree, and to shelter, not to shelter, but to bring nutrient and to bring water, fresh water to all of the people and live along this river. Yes, in fact, I have many details and to share with you about how to make the future of MFA brighter and broader. But yes, we have a long future and we can share in the future. I think so. But if any one of you is interested, and you can write to me, and I can put this PPT to you and anyone you like it, and to share my point with you. So here that I would like to thank Dr. Tina and Thailand SCS again that you make I think a very, very good title for our forum and the ways, China's ways. So here I think like all of the ways in this world that it is not working only by one country, but and I like other speakers said the Chinese model. But I'm not sure whether the Chinese model now is very really has become a model. Because China is still developing very fast, and the model is not stabilized and really completely formed. So I think the feedback from our partners, our friends, is also very helpful for China to make a better model, and for itself and for all of our partners. So I think like all of the ways is a part of this future model. So thank you. I think I can hear so many type of points and to share my understanding. Thank you very much.
First, I apologize that we don't have Dr. Tang's PowerPoint presentation up on the screen. We didn't know that there would be a PowerPoint, but nevertheless, Dr. Tang, I want to explore a little bit your presentation. So your focus was on the LMC. For our audience benefit, this is the Lan Chang Mak Khom Corporation. It's been around a very short time. Well, this is the area that is also known as mainland Southeast Asia, the Greater Mekong sub-region. For over 20 years now, there has been a Mekong River Commission, the MRC, which tries to provides a regional framework to govern Mekong River issues. And so, Dr. Tang, you focus on LMC. We have different acronyms, but LMC is a kind of a study, an example of China's way, right? Now, I need to explore this a little bit. So the Lanchang Mekong, if you just imagine the map of the Mekong River, it goes from the Tibetan Plateau, down Myanmar, down to China, past China, and then of course Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. Now, China has been building dams upstream, and China is not a member of the Mekong River Commission, nor is Myanmar, but the other four are. So Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam. And we've had this workshop before, a couple of years ago, Dr. Tang, remember? And in fact, we will have another workshop in Khon Kaen, early March, that Dr. Tang's colleague Yang Yi will join. The challenge is still similar, but it has exacerbated, Dr. Tang. So there are more dams now. If you have the same river, if you're upstream, you have the advantage of being able to do whatever you like with the water, because you're there first. It comes to you first. So China has built these dams, and Lanchang Mekong Corporation is China's way of getting the other parties to join under China's organizations. So the Lanchang Mekong Corporation has just had, in early January, second summit already. Short time, second summit already. But China makes it clear, and this is analogous to the South China Sea, to other areas of China's way, that China has a way and some rules, and if you don't play by these rules, then China doesn't play. Is that the case? Cambodia is not, I know from Cambodian colleagues and Vietnam, they don't speak up, but they're not very happy with the dams, because the dams adversely affect their livelihoods. So as an example of China's way, there are dissenters, and there are some opposition, some opponents, people who don't quite agree with China's way, Dr. Tang, I have to put it to you. And it's a risk for China to bulldoze these dissenting views, because in the longer term, they might not want to join and cooperate with China. Yeah. So perhaps you can talk a little bit about how China's way, or the architecture that Chulacheeb has alluded to. What if these vehicles are not well accepted, or what would China do to these criticisms and reservations among the other partners who are adversely affected by the China's way and the vehicles and the LMC that you just mentioned?
Yes, I am talking about the dams. That yes, I have read that Dr. Thitinan's articles on this topic. Yes, I know that, and that's really not China's fault, because we have the Tibetan flora in the world, and the highest, the third, the highest place mountains in the world, and almost all of the Asian rivers come from this place. That's not China's fault. That's nature. That's nature. But on the other hand, that dam is a very, it's a very complex topic. Yes, like everything, the double-edged sword, and dams, yes, bring critics and for the upstream countries, but it also bring many benefits for all of the people. Yes, you see that you sometimes you see the you see the river that yes, dams, they get water, they get water there, and yes, it seems that the downstreams that the water is reduced. But how about when it's dry, and the water will come out of the how is that, the lake, or the, I don't know how to say the lake, and So the downstreams will benefit from the water has been saved there. I think that's a double-edged, and so that's why China, not only China, LMC make water resources as one of the 6 priority area for cooperation. So I think if you talk about a river, the control and the management should be for the whole basin, not by one country. So that's why it's important for the cooperation of all of the 6 countries of the whole basin. So I think that is the future. I don't think China will try to made up this initiative to get itself criticized by all of the parties. But I think that's why now we have the Water Resources Study Center, to gather information, the scientific, technological information to how to make this river contribute to development of all of the people in the basin. Of course, not only for China. I think so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I know that time is limited, but I want to engage the audience and provide a little time for the audience to ask questions or comments. So the floor is open. We'll take probably just time for just one round.
Banking system in terms of the BRI. I mean, is there any sense that this BRI is going to strengthen China's banking system? For example, if you look at Laos, I think that high-speed train is happening. And as far as I understand, there's only the China Import-Export Bank that's involved. And that's a very dubious project commercially. It might lose money. Is that going to help the Chinese banks, or is it going to undermine them in the long run?
I have a related question on the banking. So are Chinese banks now the biggest in the world? Are they too big to be good? Are they at the risk of vulnerability, instability, and leading to crisis? And second, the governance structure, the power of finance and the power of state combined make them very powerful. All the data is coming out. Are they actually good data, believable, or are they corrupted data? And thirdly, do they need further transformation in banking?
Larry Jagan, I'm a freelance analyst and journalist. I seem to have your cold. Must have caught it when I passed Thammasat. I just wanted to raise the issue of the way in which BRI combines government and state, certainly, the military, and private commercial interests. And I wondered if James could reflect on how they fit in to the overall plan, because obviously the ports that are being built, like in Jorpyu, does seem as though the dimensions are for submarines to visit. The other issue is the commercial ones. The commercial ventures like Jorpyu Port, they seem to be overpriced. They do not seem to be in the interests of Myanmar. To what extent is the government allowing commercial interests to dictate the terms on which some of these infrastructure are being developed?
I'm Councillor Faraz Zaidi, Deputy Head of Mission of the Pakistan Embassy in Bangkok. I would like the August panel to draw a comparison between the rise and assertiveness of China on the world stage with that of the US in the past. As the US assumed the global political leadership, it presented certain enviable values for the rest of the world to emulate, to aspire for, like liberty, freedom, democracy, and human rights. The obvious advantage of this approach was that US had the moral high ground for a very long time. Do you think enough thought has been given by the Chinese leadership to this aspect? Are there any embedded values in the China's way?
Okay, values. Jim, you may answer the questions and we'll come down. Actually, we'll save you for last. If I may come down this way, Pikawi and then Chulacheeb and Dr. Tang, a minute each. If you want to say anything as the last comment.
No. I think I don't have anything to say.
Then Chulacheeb. Dr. Tang, you have to say something. You come a long way. Anything you want to say?
Finally, I would like to say something about the bilateral relationship between China and Thailand. Yes, I agree with Ms. Kavi that yes, we have very good relations, and for the two countries, and we are very close related. And but there are really many things that we should do further to deepen our relationship, our friendship. Yes, we have. There is no big problem between China and Thailand. We have nothing that's in trouble. So it is not difficult to deepen our relationship and our cooperation. But what we should do is to make a very practical plan to do that. To make a list what things we can do better. We can do better, and now we are doing very well, but we can do better. I can see the space for progress. So that's I want to say. I want to make my very small contribution to that.
Okay, thank you. Jim, a few questions for you.
Okay, a few questions. I'm not sure I got them all, but I'll try to respond to as much as I can here. First, banks and the BRI. Indeed, Chinese banks will definitely have a role. As I said earlier, Chinese strategy is always holistic. Everybody plays a role in each strategy. The big three development banks, the China Agricultural Development Bank, the China Export Bank, and the China Development Bank, of those, the latter two always have a very important role to play in China's support of infrastructure development overseas. That's the China Development Bank and the China XacBank. Both support big projects. China Development Bank has gotten itself into quite a bit of difficulty recently with huge exposure to Venezuela, which debts are being paid back through payment in kind through oil. The commercial banks also are asked to play a role, particularly the top five, ICBC, the Bank of Construction Bank, Bank of China, Communications Bank, and I'm missing one of them, but the top five are expected to support things overseas. Now, and this relates to the question on the validity of data, which basically comes down to the question of, are the NPLs the Chinese banks report under 2%, are they reliable or not? When some Westerners are saying actual NPLs are 15%. There's quite a gap between 2 and 15%. The Western observers have been saying that for more than a decade, of course. When Chinese banks lend to state-owned enterprises or to local governments for infrastructure in China, they get paid back. One way or another, China does not lack in money. And so there are not defaults on these loans. Sometimes they have to be restructured. Some of these loans are for 3 years, 4 years, when in fact the project should be a 20-year loan. They get restructured, or the loan gets replaced by a bond, or repayment on the loan comes from other sources, from a local government or from a state-owned enterprise. So they get taken care of. But once you begin to go outside of China and you lend to, say, the high-speed railway China is constructing between Belgrade and Budapest, different ballgame. You're not dealing with Chinese guy, you're dealing with a Chinese contractor, but the ultimate repayment has to come from a Hungarian company. So totally different kind of risk. And I think Chinese banks will find that a little difficult. On the one hand, they're obligated to support government strategy. On the other hand, they're also obligated to not lose money. It's a problem of Chinese banks. They have two goals. And the senior people in Chinese banks, you asked about the combination of state and banking, state and finance. Senior people running Chinese banks are party members. They are tasked with contributing to the development of China. At the same time, they are expected to run an efficient bank that does not lose money. So it's a bit of a dilemma, and the Chinese banks are resisting supporting some of the BRI but they will have to. Regarding Chinese data credibility, recognition of NPLs in any system is partially an art. China, each year, what is not noticed is Chinese banks each year are writing off against bad loans. They have a very high level of provisions. They're continually writing off bad debts every year. So instead of waiting for a great bust like 2008 and then needing a bailout, each year they clean up a part of their problems. I think that Chinese banks will get in more difficulty in the future as they lend increasingly to the private sector. But basically, Chinese banking data, I think, is believable. It is signed off by international auditors, and you pin down the critics as to where they think these NPLs are going to cause losses. Well, they're not going to come from state-owned enterprises. State-owned enterprises, even if they're losing money, they do have money to service debts. Part of Xi Jinping's program for the next few years in China is to strengthen the efficiencies of the SOEs, the state-owned enterprises. As that is implemented, then they will have more and more cash flow to service debts that may be overdue. So they are kept current when they might not be kept current in a similar situation in the US. If you look at local governments belong to the central government. It's not a federal system. They can't go bankrupt like Detroit can. It's sovereign risk. Any banker knows lending to sovereign risk is good. So I think the Western criticisms of Chinese banking data are vastly overdone, and that's been proven over the last few years.
Okay, thank you very much. 1 minute wrap up. Again, this is Jim Stent's insightful, instructive book on China's banking transformation and a way of understanding China overall. Look, when the Soviet Union collapsed and disintegrated, the big debates, they thought about what happened, and Sovietologists, they were astounded, they were shocked. So they went back to look who was the first to warn about the Soviet collapse. So it turned out to be in 1977, there was some obscure article. Some analyst, scholar did write that, the Soviet system is overstretched, it's exhausted, it can collapse. So it turned out to be the case. Now, coming to Sinology, I think that when the Soviet Union collapsed, it affected Europe, Central Asia, not so much around here, not so much the Asia Pacific, East Asia. But if something similar happens to China, we will all be affected around here. So I think whether or not we are critics, proponents, whoever, we have an interest in China's sustainability. Thank you very much for coming today, and please join me in thanking the speaker. Thank you.